A little bit weird, but this week instead of excuse me, doing a traditional tabletop Thursday, we're gonna do a kind of something a little different. We're gonna take a look at designing encounters, especially one-off encounters, um, for D&D. And so this is something that I, of course, love to do, and something that if you're DMing a game becomes essential. So if you're looking to, I'm going to take you through one of the ones that I designed and kind of explain some of my thoughts around it. So this one is an escape. Now, one of the reasons I designed it as an escape is because any players who are missing from a regular campaign, who the people who are left there, you can abduct into your otherworldly dimension where they are stuck, and you can just pull them right out of your campaign and put them right back afterwards if you want to do it that way. Or you can have somebody design new characters and just start here and move from there. Yeah, I've even had it to. I was kind of designing it also that you could also introduce a character to your campaign and to the lore while you do it that way. So, I call this one Manx Escapes because this was designed for one of my friend's characters, and that character's name was Mananan MacLeod. So it is reduced to Manx. Um, Sorry, I got a quick message real quick. And then, so one thing I just wanted to do is kind of share this dungeon with you so you'll have a chance to, if you wanted to use this one or just get the idea behind it. So this one's, we took this idea. So I was like, where could I imprison him and abduct him to that wouldn't have an effect on my world? So I thought, oh, of course, we're going to use the in between. We're going to use the nether, the ether, the realm of chaos where Githzerai and Githyanki all stay. So I had him design a character in D&D Beyond, and then I added him and did my content sharing because you can do that as a DM. Super useful if you're having a bunch of people in your campaigns. And he decided to do a a Minotaur Paladin Oathbreaker. And so with that, we decided he would be a paladin for a god of death. And so that god of death had sent him into the world to hunt down an immortal. And so, of course, the story, as most of them do, I had it start out when he got close to and inside of a pub. That way, if I ever needed to use this for any other characters down the road, I could just put them into an inn or a pub or something quick and easy. That way, it's not so weird that they're just suddenly going out of anywhere. So anyway, we had him hunting down this immortal, but this immortal was a spellcaster who banished him. And as he banished him into the nether, he found himself floating in the void, chaos all around him, things bursting into and out of existence, his own body starting to unravel as he takes psychic damage. But he's got this dreadful purpose, and he's made for one thing, and that keeps him together in this strange realm. Now, if you don't have a character so motivated, so singularly motivated, you can have them picked up much sooner before this part. It'll actually make it a little easier. So we have them. We have a ship appear floating towards him on the horizon, and it's part of the Githyanki. The Githyanki being these insanely awesome, super fun, stretched out beings who uh, live here, and they're astral raiders, you know. And then there's the so basically, without going too much into them, they live here and they are freaking awesome. So they take him, and they're gonna make him one of their prisoners. So that's how we get our characters into a prison. Now, a prison escape is nice because depending on how you design it, it can either you can really end it at any time. So you can make the session last as long or as short as you want, as long as you include a good mix of puzzles and of well, um, action like fights. So the first thing he does, he wakes up, and because he was a single player, I had it so it kind of went like this, where he woke up with a character sitting across from him, staring him down. The character asks him, they see food appear, and of course they're gonna want to challenge this person who's with the cell. And I made it this Gizeri who's just wanting to spend some time before eventually they have to beat each other to death because there's only enough food that comes out every day for one person. But anyway, if you're having a single player who's there, or just maybe one or two, I've included what I like to do is include like PCs to help them along the way, so that way you can design it for a much higher and more complex dungeon than only one person can take. And if you have only one person missing, or if you have only two people missing, you still have three or four people. You can just remove these NPCs and put them right into the dungeon itself. And without them, you would just be in a room with a light in the middle. Now, this room is basically completely cylindrical and easy to describe, so you can keep the pace of the game going. So with the light in the middle where food rises out from it, your party will soon realize that there's only enough food for one person, and hopefully they, will be expecting and trying to get a way out. They'll quickly find they can move the orb, but every time they do, it snaps back to the middle of the room. After some experimentation, they can either overload load the orb with magic, they can pull it all the way one side of the room with strength checks and things like that, or they can try to nimbly cut it in half. Basically, you want this solvable by any class. So, however you want this orb destroyed, that's the part you should be. You should lean that part of the design towards your character specifically. Especially if you're only playing with one character. Next, what I did is I designed this in a way that all of the rooms look pretty much the same. They're circular rooms, and I've included different challenges depending on which room they're in. And of course, I chose some favorite things that I really wanted to do. Certain puzzles, and then I know how it's going to end. So what I would do is I would roll basically a d8, and then whatever it landed on, I would send him to that room as long as it wasn't the final room. If it was final, I'd re-roll, and if it was the first, and every room they'd ever been in, I would also re-roll it as well. So the first option they could have ended up with would be the Sphinx. Of course, the Sphinx has many riddles, and if these riddles, of course, I will pass. But you got to basically answer 3 riddles, or fight and defeat the Sphinx before it'll let you get at the orb to free yourself from this room. Uh, and there's lots of fun riddles, like, I have a tail, I have a head, I have no body, and I'm not a snake. What am I? It's a coin. And then I've you can find these everywhere, and then you can make up some of your own, which are pretty amazing. Like, I follow you, but I never catch you. What am I? It's a shadow. Um, so, one of my favorites I invented, and I'm gonna humble brag about this one, is you can live within me while I live in you. You can live in me while I live in you. Anything can cause me to be with you, yet when faced I disappear. What am I? It's fear. And it's not necessarily that hard of a puzzle, but I love making the flowery wording and everything. Really adds to the mood of your dungeon. Um, Another option could have been just straight into water with a trap door at the bottom that has the crystal, the light, orb of light in it, but you have to fight off some sanguine. And the nice thing about this is Sahuagin, I don't know. Anyway, but these are really fun to run. They've got spears, they've got claws, they got multi-attack, they got shark telepathy if you want to add a shark, and then a blood frenzy, which gives them advantage on attack rolls against any creature that does not have all of its hit points. And then they can also drag people into the water. They've got to stay swimming. It's just deep enough for them to drown in. And so this is a really fun encounter that you can really use to or against the advantage of your party. So, like, one if my Aarakocra friend had gotten in here, he could have just flied above the water and shot them all dead while they were trying to desperately throw spears at him. Meanwhile, I also added another NPC to control, because a lot of these rooms are designed for more than one person, but can work with one person if you just give them some NPC help. So the water level it's all about skill chest, not drowning, and also fighting some really fun and creative enemies. One of the more straightforward rooms is just the acid room. So don't fall in the acid. You got to fight 2 Otyugh who are under the command of this spectator, this kind of miniature, devious beholder. He's basically a tiny. And once you defeat him, they become less intelligent, easier to defeat, and you can also use the acid to your advantage by pushing them or into it. I think I had one people they drowned the spectator inside the acid. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. And then one of my favorite rooms, the next one, is the staircase room. Now this room is something where you can't you can only do one thing, but you have to figure out how to make that one thing work for you. So this room is a really simple design. It's just a spiral staircase that goes up. Okay, it's why. Oh, okay, it's in a room. Sorry, wife needed something. So, that this is only just a spiral staircase, and at the top of the staircase there is a gap, and that gap is, just large enough that it's difficult to clear. The only trick is when you first enter the room, there are skeletons on the floor that match the skeletons of the party. And so when they try to go up the stairs, every step they take, they age more and more and more. And if they are of different lifespans, they all age equally to the fact that they're going to be super old by the time they reach the top of the stairs and unable to make that check. Coming back down the stairs does not de-age you. So eventually, you're either going to they most players are like, oh crap, now what do I do? And then they try to make the jump. They will try something, and they'll fall, and they'll die, and they'll come back walking through that doorway with two sets of skeletons on the floor. So eventually, the trick to this one is they have to keep going until there's enough skeletons that they can just walk across them and exit the room. Of course, it's all going to be, presented as basically a hallucination or something afterwards. Your characters don't have to have the exact existential crisis of, I'm like, oh, my character only version 286, of course. Which, if they're an ongoing campaign, if not the one-off, it won't really matter, and they'll have to question that. You can leave that in or take it out depending on your style of DMing or how you feel about it. Lava Room, again, pretty straightforward, but this time having to deal with the elemental damage of two fire elementals and then one earth elemental. You'll notice it's almost exactly the same as the acid room, just a different color. Then there's a beams puzzles. So when they walk into this room, there are two um, mirrors of which this light is emanating out of in beams, and you see there's one on the other side of the room. You see a person frozen, and you can choose how they're frozen, why they're frozen, and that's up to you. And then on the other side there is a chest. So if you look, I put this on the GM's level because this is a little whirling blade thing that you can't see. Now the trick to this room is one of the beams slows time down and the other beam makes time go faster. So without a high enough perception check, if they just go over to the chest and try to grab it, they will take a ton of slashing damage from this trap that they couldn't see because it was just moving way too damn fast. And then on the other side, they've basically figured out they can move and pivot the mirrors. Now the speed one, if they move it too much, they'll notice that they can actually age their party or decay things in the room, so they have to be careful with it. Or if they get stuck in the time beam of being frozen, that could be it until somebody comes in and moves the mirror, in which you can explain away with like having something Githyanki check on them, or if like it's a storage room and somebody's putting something to store there. I put a bunch of junk in the room that have different levels of being broken and decay, so that way they know this is used for something, but also probably messed up by these beams. And so in this room, you can either put the orb so they can do it that way, or you can put a single door of which they'll have to get to the chest by rotating the beams. And you'll notice if they move like the speed beam, there's no way to make it through without taking some sort of um, you know being sped up. So they can take the slow beam and aim it at and even out the beams right over the chest, and make a dex save to get through the blade. Now that's how I designed it. Now I've had people who just pushed the two beams together, aimed them at the center of the room, and exploded the orb. I've had one who tried to throw like an acid into the beam and the trap, so it would just decay super fast. There's a lot of answers to this room. It's just giving him the things to play around with, which I think is really fun. And then the final boss of this little encounter is just going to be the captain of this Githyanki prison. I used a Githyanki Knight. They're pretty awesome. They're super like tanky-ish, and they got their great silver sword. A lot of fun magic that you can um, play around with. He can even use non-detection and invisibility and get away, and maybe come back later in your campaign if he's not killed. And then he's just flanked by two awesome Githyanki, what are they, warriors. Again, super fun. Their own site. They have psionics, and then they have Misty Step, non-detection, Mage Hand, and have the ability to also go invisible. So these are some fun enemies that you can use to fight and really challenge the party for the final boss. In my experience running this, it should take about 4 to 6 hours, depending on your people, depending on how many rooms you want to throw at them. And it's just a really nice pocket adventure that you can throw into any campaign and get it rolling. But the design ideas that I want you to take away from this are keep it contained. Don't put it in somewhere in your world that is going to be somewhere they're going to either come back to or somewhere that is super important to your plot. Unless you want to reveal things about your plot that, well, other players aren't there. Another thing is make it adaptable so you can add content or remove content. That way, if you're getting close to the end of it and they're not getting anywhere close to the end, you can cut out content so that way it's done by the end of your session. You don't have players coming back and all of a sudden there's nothing for them to do because they are not in your little one-off. And so you don't want to punish your players who are absent because life happens. I mean, there's a lot of reasons you can miss things, especially like D&D, especially if you're playing as often as once a week. It's going to happen. But and the other thing is, if you want to reward your players, go ahead and let them take something from it. I've let mine take things. You can roll on a random loot table. You can decide something like they could take with them. Like this one, like maybe they loot the Githzerai after they kill them, and you let them take maybe an awesome Githzerai blade of a silver greatsword, and they can do slashing and psychic damage with if they're psionic, or just get that nice silvered weapon. There's all sorts of things that you can do to reward the players that have showed up without having to cancel the game, and that's the main thing. Have these ready to go because you never know when somebody's going to cancel, and so it's just a quick, nice little tabletop Thursday for you to get you through the rest of the week. And I hope this was useful to some people. And if not, I hope you enjoyed at least a little bit of story and everything like that. And you can check out the playthrough of this on the YouTube channel. You'll see it's under the D&D tab, and it's properly labeled Manx Escapes. And you can watch one of my players play through it and see how I adapt to both the time that's happening, his decisions, and kind of make it through the adventure. So you can also get the story of Manx, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. But either way, I do thank you very much for watching. Oh yeah, don't forget D&D Beyond for character creation can be super nice and easy. So if you know somebody's going to cancel early and you want to run a one-off where people get new characters, so you don't have to worry about any bleed over, definitely send them the D&D Beyond link so that way they can create a character and get rolling quickly. But that's kind of my design philosophy and one of my examples of a one-off dungeon. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you for watching. Have a kick-ass rest of your weekend.